This video is brought to you by Ground News. I vetted them for about 5 months before partnering up, and their service was a core part of why I'm even covering this video topic today. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Alright, the title says it all, so let's dive in. Activision Blizzard, the publisher responsible for Call of Duty, among other things, which is one of the largest entertainment properties in the world, recently announced that they will be using AI-powered hate speech detection methods to moderate voice chat in matches. Simply put, machine learning will become responsible for determining player punishment with the power to ban end users where and when it sees fit. It does not have that power at the moment. I just want to make that clear. I was watching the video after and had to add this in post-script, but it will. I make my case later in the video, so just keep watching. That sounds like a bad science fiction movie. The robot overlords deciding who can and can't speak, and sure, it's just video games. That's true, but video games are now in excess of a $300 billion industry, so it's safe to say that the tech applied here also replicates elsewhere. Roughly 3 billion individuals play video games, and sure, Call of Duty is a proprietary black box of sorts in terms of actual player statistics, but over 50 million MAU, monthly active users, have been documented in both Call of Duty Mobile and Warzone, respectively, which is just 2 entries in the current roster. I don't really need to sit here and rattle off stats on how big the franchise is. Everyone already knows that, but what they might not know is that very soon they will be subjected to machine learning moderation designed to monitor their voices in real time and ban them for excess toxicity. Now, it's very important when I discuss topics like this to try and stay away from alarmist fear-mongering. That's one of my very distinctive goals now, so let's dissect this as responsibly as possible. Directly from Activision Blizzard's own blog post, quote, Call of Duty's new voice chat moderation system utilizes ToxMod, the AI-powered voice chat moderation technology from Modulate, to identify in real time and enforce against toxic speech, including hate speech, discriminatory language, harassment, and more. This new development will bolster the ongoing moderation systems led by the Call of Duty anti-toxicity team, which includes text-based filtering across 14 languages for in-game text, chat, and usernames, as well as a robust in-game player reporting system. An initial beta rollout of the voice chat moderation technology will begin in North America on August 30th inside the existing games Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty Warzone, to be followed by a full worldwide release, excluding Asia, timed to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on November 10th. Support will begin in English with additional languages to follow at a later date. End quote. There it is. Beta system is already live, full-scale rollout during the final months of 2023. Cool. Why does it matter? Well, for starters, the only reason that the company even feels like it needs this kind of system is because of a thing called scale. Operating at scale, in this context, means operating a franchise that has tens of millions of concurrent players, which means hundreds of thousands of reports and a veritable fire hose of constant moderation decisions that have to be made. That requires an entire team of people, sitting there 24/7, reviewing complaints and handing out punishment. That takes time, money, and resources to maintain, which gets more and more difficult over time, especially with the growth of the player base. YouTube itself has the very same issue. So does Twitch, so does Facebook, and so does Twitter. All social media does, for that matter. Operating at scale is not an isolated issue, but the goal here is to automate the process as much as possible. On the most fundamental level, I completely understand why, but there's a delicate balance because too much automation leads to false positive punishment, which is obviously not acceptable. To be completely honest, false positive punishment happens with moderation on a human level as well, but it's nothing compared to machine learning. I'll go deeper on that later. Currently, as it stands, AI moderation in Call of Duty will scan voice chat, text chat, and player usernames. However, it should be clarified that the consensus here is that human moderation is still, for the time being, the final decision maker. Directly from the Call of Duty support page, quote, Detection happens in real time, with the system categorizing and flagging toxic language based on the Call of Duty Code of Conduct as it is detected. Detected violations of the Code of Conduct may require additional reviews of associated recordings to identify context before enforcement is determined. Therefore, actions taken will not be instantaneous. As the system grows, our processes and response times will evolve. Further down, Call of Duty's voice chat moderation system only submits reports about toxic behavior categorized by its type of behavior and a rated level of severity based on an evolving model. Activision determines how it will enforce voice chat moderation violations. End quote. Okay, so right now, as it stands, to be very clear, human eyes are a supposed stopgap between false positives and wrongful punishment. But I'm sorry to say, that is quite obviously a temporary measure, because it defeats the entire purpose of the program itself. Alright, before going further, this video is of course sponsored by Ground News, but also, quickly, the topic itself only came up on my radar initially after someone sent me a link to their platform. Let's use this very subject as an example. Ground News serves as an aggregate feed of reporting on various issues, right? Breaking news, etc., stuff like that. For this one, AI in Call of Duty, it compiles a list of outlets, links to where the story is covered, rates them in terms of media bias, and serves them to the reader. The problem a lot of us face right now, and it is indeed a problem as we browse social media, is knowing what is or is not true. Or at the very least, if you can't find out what's true, knowing what is and is not biased or has spin on it. Ground News works to solve that problem by clearly outlining the business structure, factuality, and political leanings of the outlets, which helps contextualize what would otherwise be splinter fragments of a broader picture. I mean it when I say it. It's a good service. I use it myself. I've had people in my own research circles use it for quite some time on discussions and things like that. And it lets me compare headlines, follow topics I care about, and discover disproportionate coverage. That's an interesting one. It is a much more well-rounded method of digesting contemporary news, especially compared to a social media feed, for example, which is great because that makes it easy to talk about them as a sponsor. I actually dropped the amount of money I normally ask for on this ad, specifically because it's a worthy sponsor to take. And I thought it was a good fit for the channel. If you subscribe through the link down below in the description before September 25th, you will get 30% off the unlimited access tier plan. Again, link down below for 30% off if you sign up before September 25th. In terms of a sponsorship, this is about as good a fit as I could possibly ask for on the channel, so please keep that in mind. Big thank you to Ground News for sponsoring the channel. All right, the consensus here from browsing all of these articles is that Call of Duty now employs at-scale moderation with machine learning, but human beings have the final say. Cool, fine, whatever. But no, not really whatever. That doesn't make any logical sense, at least not long-term, because the entire premise of automation is to reduce human labor and cost. The new system is called ToxMod, which is developed by a company called Modulate. Modulate is partnered with the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, by the way, for those that have an opinion on that part of things. But to really explain this, I have to go big picture. ToxMod is intended to actively moderate chat activity, which is a step forward from passive moderation, if you will, where another user has to be the first one to submit a report ticket. In the past, if 10 million people were playing the game, let's say, and 100,000 instances of toxic behavior occurred on any given day or week or month, whatever it is, whether legitimate or exaggerated, it might result in, I don't know, let's say 10,000 actual reports at the end of the day. See, the number gets drastically smaller based on how many steps there are in the process, but ToxMod eliminates one of those steps completely by flagging every single instance of toxicity it scans, not just hears about or has a user report submitted. This means, if we think about it rationally, that instead of 10 million players creating, 100,000 instances, shall we say, of toxicity, where only 10,000 of them become legitimate report tickets, thereby requiring action, the software will start to flag somewhere in the vicinity maybe of 100,000 cases. It could be more if the false positive rate is high, which it is, more on that in a second, or it could be lower if the software is drastically flawed. But the number of instances where behavior is detected that requires moderation spikes dramatically. Fairly simple equation, and hopefully everyone can see where I'm going with it. If these new infractions actually require or receive human review, suddenly the amount of work that needs to be done increases dramatically. That means more people, more time, and more cost, moderating a much larger set of complaints so that human eyes can check the context and decision-making of an AI program. It's not exactly like that, but that's the gist of it. Short term, that's fine. They're training the program. Long term, it defeats the entire purpose of at-scale moderation because the actual value of machine learning, in this case, is the ability to automate the process. See what I'm saying? Right now, as they conduct the beta, sure, maybe the AI has human oversight. Later down the line, it won't. I say that with about as much conviction as I can possibly have. Setting aside the wider implications of training a program like that, Amazon admits, for example, that workers listen to the audio Alexa picks up in your home. Microsoft admits that third parties listen to Cortana in Skype conversations, etc., etc. It's a really scary field when you get into it. Setting all that aside, the more immediate problem comes into focus: WER. WER, also known as word error rate, though imperfect, refers to the frequency that AI-generated transcripts are wrong. ASR, automatic speech recognition, is a rapidly growing field, but when it comes to relative accuracy and WER, the industry norm, is nowhere near as well developed as most people think. Anecdotally, I know this because I use a program called Descript rather often to scrape AI-generated text from long-form videos, and it's good. To an extent, it's good for what I need it for, really. But the error rate is extremely high. However, that's just me. What about others? According to research from Johns Hopkins, Poznan University of Technology in Poland, and Wrocław University of Science and Technology during 2020, The word error rate when analyzing call center data for contemporary cutting-edge automatic speech recognition software was as high as 23%. At the same exact time, major tech firms were claiming rates of under 5%. That's a huge discrepancy, often as low as 2 or 3%, according to them. Yes, technology moves fast, but the challenges of idiolect, accent, and crosstalk are very difficult to solve in this way, and the added nuance of context means that while machine learning can now perform basic tasks, it's still very far from being able to achieve accuracy rates acceptable for moderation or punishment. Philosophically, will it ever be acceptable? The word error rate for speech recognition software will likely never be zero, and allowing a machine learning program to execute disciplinary action over human beings, well, that seems pretty bad. Philosophically, will it ever be acceptable? Some people say no, some people say yes, and that's a debate that's probably never going to subside. Still, the point here is to explore the topic thoroughly, and with that in mind, Call of Duty isn't alone. Riot Games and Ubisoft have also partnered up on an initiative called Zero Harm in Comms, where a joint database is being built for AI moderation to detect harmful speech and implement automatic voice evaluation. Good, bad, that's up to you, the viewer, but the push towards automatic solutions at scale that will moderate and suspend players based on machine learning is growing, undeniably growing. Even if the error rate were to fall, let's say, below 2%, is it even a good idea in the first place? I understand the desire for video game communities to be purged of offensive conduct, however that is interpreted. It's a battle that's taken place for decades, but I find myself increasingly hesitant to accept AI moderation as the saving grace. An error rate of even just 1 or 2% in a community that spans 100 million players will result in incredibly high numbers of wrongful suspensions, as an absolute number that is, if complete automation is utilized. I understand that every new AI startup claims to have the most advanced method and model, but human communication and emotional context is not something that should be governed, at least not in my eyes, from my perspective, by a neural network of automated if-then criteria. My point is this: brace yourself for the inevitability that video games will soon be governed by artificial intelligence. Your activity, communication, and behavior will be surveilled constantly, and if the program decides that you have done something offensive to someone else, you will be banned. We are witnessing the pilot programs right now as I make this video. We are watching them build the database, and eventually it will have actual authority to hand out suspensions and protect the community, in big air quotes, whatever that word ultimately means. That's it. If you want support, check out the links down below. Best ways are locals, Patreon, and channel memberships, but there's also a cybersecurity product affiliate list, social media, and of course the video sponsor, Ground News. But yeah, I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.